about people in boxing, of course. Now, back to Harold Smith. One of the things that I wanted to say about Harold is that when I was the boxing manager, I don't think that I have to stress the fact that the red carpet was not rolled out for me. In fact, there were instances when the carpet was rolled out and they jerked it up as I was as I was getting ready to walk down, they jerked it. But when I sat and talked with Harold Smith, he never talked down to me or tried to negotiate with me as though he was talking with a woman, as some men do.
Right.
Of course, I know you'd never be guilty of something like that, but Harold, you know, he was very nice to me, and he was very businesslike, and we had a good rapport when we negotiated with each other, and we had a wonderful relationship as manager to promoter. And as you know, I sat at the bargaining table with Don King and Butch Lewis and some of the other.
And the list goes on and on.
Yes, but
well, you know, I wanted to add that even though I never really got a chance to know Harold Smith on a personal level, on the few occasions that I've been in his company, I've found him to be very warm, very receptive.
He really is.
And I think that when the boxing fraternity decide to allow this man to do what he does best, I think that we'll see a promoter that's unequal to any of the premier promoters out there today. And I have the, you know, I have the ultimate respect for Don King, because Don King is a gentleman that, as he say, only in America could there be a Don King. I mean, here's a gentleman that came from total obscurity and was able to pull off one of the biggest fights at that time, which he was the one who promoted George Foreman and Muhammad Ali, the Rumble in the Jungle, as they call it. And from that point on, his career just skyrocketed. But you know, there are those in boxing that are afraid of Harold Smith. They're afraid of the influence that Harold has with the fighters. Harold Smith is one of the few promoters, or probably the only one that I know, who have a genuine feeling for the fighters.
This is what I was getting ready to say. They should question why he's able to have this kind of influence. It was my feeling when I did business with Harold that he actually cared for us and for the boxers. And boxers, as you know, are treated sometimes, you know.
Well, you know, Joe Frazier, one of our great heavyweight champions, said that boxers are treated as prostitutes.
I honestly agree. And Joe, speaking of Joe Frazier, because I want to plug Joe as well, Joe was a very nice man. But back to the fight that you said Don King pulled off, the Foreman-Ali fight. I was privy to some of the inside information that was going on at that time. Bundini Brown was telling me, we were in Muhammad Ali's camp one night, and Bundini was telling us that Don King had come up to the camp and tried to get Ali to sign and was back and forth with Foreman, and that it was really a very, 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 very difficult thing to pull off. I mean, it was very, 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 very difficult. And there were people with Ali who were telling Ali not to do it because they were afraid, and Bundini was one of them. He was honestly afraid of George. I mean, he loved Ali, and you know he was in Ali's corner. He was afraid of George.
Well, you know, I think that as you look at the way the picture was at that time, Muhammad Ali had lost to Joe Frazier. George Foreman, of course, destroyed Joe Frazier.
Oh, do I remember.
Then Muhammad Ali turned around and was defeated by Ken Norton. George Foreman annihilated Ken Norton. So I think logical thinking would say that that would be a very disastrous outcome for Muhammad Ali to fight George Foreman. But in retrospect, now that we realize how great Muhammad Ali was,
and you know how I
think
love
he was
Ali.
showing us things that I think the average fans could not see. He mentioned that George Foreman threw wide punches, punches that came from way back here, and he said all that would do for a fighter with the skills that I possess was give me a straight path to hit him, move out by the time his fist would come back.
And of course, punching like that was going to deplete George's energy.
Exactly.
So Muhammad was a man with a plan.
Well, Muhammad Ali had a strategy that I think probably he was the only one who understood. And when he laid on the ropes, everybody thought, of course, that was suicidal. Yes, why is he doing this rope-a-dope thing? You know, what is this? What is this? But well, you know, he was basically drawing George Foreman to him. And George Foreman was going... See, George Foreman admitted in recent years that Muhammad Ali just outsmarted him.
Yes.
He just outsmarted him. That's really what it boiled down to. And, you know...
Because had Ali gone in at that point to try to brawl,
it wouldn't have, you know,
wouldn't have been.
And he was aware of
advantage.
that. He was aware of that. He said that after the first round, he was aware that this man was physically just too strong for him.
Well, Norm, what about our dear Mike Tyson?
Well, you know,
I love
think,
you, Mike. I really do. I pray for you, honestly.
I think that Mike Tyson is certainly one of the biggest tragedies we've ever seen in boxing.
Isn't that sad? It hurts my heart.
Yes,
it
certainly
so
is.
Sad.
And I'm not here to pass judgment on whether or not he's guilty or not guilty, but I will say this much. Recently, Desiree Washington, the lady who he allegedly raped, is now coming to the forefront, showing her real colors. She's now demanding monetary compensation.
So
when initially she claimed that that was not her desire, that was not her interest. As a matter of fact, she went a step further and stated that if Mike Tyson had came to her and apologized, she would not even gone along with it.
And that just would have been it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Desiree, you know, and
I don't understand that at all. Right. You know, you're saying that
that
now after the man has been sentenced to 6 years in prison. You know, Mike Tyson certainly was a target. I've seen Mike Tyson on numerous occasions. There are a lot of, you know, very money-hungry women that came at Mike Tyson. And, you know, he's a young man. Mike Tyson is 25 years old. When you're young and you have a lot of money and you want to have fun.
Champion of the world.
And you want to have fun, you know. And like I said, I'm not, if Mike Tyson is guilty, he deserved what he got and he belonged to be where he is. However, if he's guilty of raping Desiree Washington, then I'm guilty too.
Gee, now that was very strong
and the reason why I say that...
Hopefully you've never met Desiree. You might be the next person in the paper.
The reason why I say that, and I'm not saying
that...
Well,
I know, of course, you don't mean it literally.
Yeah, the reason why I'm saying that is because I don't see why Desiree Washington chose to visit Mike at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's not saying... That's not saying...
They have met at lunch. I mean, really. Were they too busy for tea at lunchtime?
That's not saying that gave him permission to, you know, to rape her if in fact
you know
he did.
The general feeling seems to be, the general consensus that I get when I talk with people, they seem to feel that there seemed to have been some kind of rapport that they had earlier, and that certain things were consensual and understood, and that maybe at some point things just sort of went a different direction. Of course, we weren't there, and we don't know.
Which, as two adults, you know, I'm sure that there have been situations where you thought maybe you wanted to do certain things, at the last minute you change your mind.
And of course, if it's the, you know, the woman has the right, of course, women, you know, to change our minds if we choose. But, you know, did you see the documentary on Mike? Of course, I know you must have seen it.
I certainly did.
What did you think of him?
I thought that he acquitted himself very well. I thought that, you know,
shocked.
There are those who feel, especially a gentleman named Charlie Steiner, that Mike Tyson is still not, he's still not accepting the fact that he was guilty. He's not.
Excuse me, but how can he accept the fact that he was guilty if he feels he was innocent?
He's not.
I mean, how can he possibly do that?
Right. Well, what they were saying, that in order for him to rehabilitate, he have to accept that he was wrong. And if you feel that you're not wrong, then of course you're not going to accept that.
Well, how can you? I mean, that's impossible. But one of the things that I loved about Mike was that his strength, his self-worth seemed to have been intact. Now, I've told that prison does devastatingly bad things to people, and that over a period of time, maybe they'd interview him again and this wouldn't be there, but I'm praying that this would stay there. And again, like you, I think they both need prayer, regardless of whatever went wrong or whatever. But Mike, I like the fact that his chin was up and, you know, he felt good about himself. And let's talk about what it would be like when he comes back, because even though Mike said, I want to be one of the regular folks, I believe in my heart that when Mike Tyson steps out that jail, he's going to step right back in the ring.
That will be probably one of the biggest fights. Whoever's champion.
Can you imagine?
Whoever's champion.
Hey, you could fight him. Or even, I mean,
it would make a difference, right.
Even if they announced that I was the opponent, people would show up, wouldn't they?
Mike Tyson is the kind of guy that the boxing fans are going to go to see, regardless if it's 2 years or 3 years from now.
Doesn't matter.
I think that it will be one of the most exciting fights to promote. Hopefully your friend Harold Smith will be involved.
Nice?
As a matter of fact, and I'm going to just touch on this lightly, this wasn't brought to the public's knowledge, but just prior to the situation that occurred with Tyson and Desiree Washington, Mike had been contacting Harold Smith.
I did hear something about that.
Exactly. He had been contacting Harold Smith because I think that Harold Smith was giving him the kind of advice that he needed.
And attention,
so I think
maybe.
eventually, you know, we might have seen him in Harold Smith's camp which would have really caused a lot of stir
what an
in the boxing fraternity.
What an upset. Well, you know, I was talking with someone the other day about what Mike will have when he comes back, and this was a lay person, of course, and I will talk with him now and then, but it bothers me when they just say some of those things that they say. And this man said, well, 3 years from now, he won't be able to do anything. He won't be able to even have a punch. Now, Norman.
No, I don't see it that way. Mike is 25. If Mike Tyson is out of boxing for 3 years, say maybe give and take a year or two, I think that it will give his body a chance to rejuvenate. He's not getting pounded on. He stated on that interview that he's doing over 600 sit-ups a day.
Oh, when I heard that, I mean, I thought,
you know,
my 25.
I think that as long as he keep his body in shape and keep his mind the way we saw it, you know, he seemed as if he accepted his fate in terms of, well, I'm not going to be out for at least a couple, 2, 3 years, and just go ahead and do his time. I think when he come back, he will be as good as he ever was.
I honestly do too, but I think that's because we're boxing people that we know that.
Right. I've watched fighters who have been inactive for a period of 2 or 3 years. Of course, the ones that I'm referring to were not incarcerated. Number one, Muhammad Ali, and also Sugar Ray Leonard. And I think Mike Tyson, I think he's in the same league as Ali and Ray Leonard in terms of he's just one, you know, dynamic fighter.
Yes,
he's the kind of guy that when he stepped back in that ring, whenever it is 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to see a fighting machine.
And you know what they overlook too, and as you know, Mike is a puncher as opposed to a boxer like Ali or Leonard. Punchers don't deteriorate with their ability to punch sometimes the way boxers do with their ability to box.
Well, the boxers, you know, it's a known fact that if you take a fighter that's a boxer and a fighter who's a puncher,
that's right,
your reflexes will go certainly quicker than your punching power.
Absolutely.
Because George Foreman at 43 years old certainly is hitting just as hard now as he did back in the 70s.
Which causes people to say, in the event that George and Larry fight, they'll say, now Larry Holmes was a boxer. Foreman was a puncher. So they conclude that Foreman will definitely
knock Larry Holmes out.
That's the conclusion that they come to.
I don't buy that, though. I don't buy that because I think that Larry Holmes still have enough of his skills left to offset George Foreman, who is very slow and methodical, even though he hits real hard. But I think just watching Holmes against Holyfield, you see that Larry Holmes still has enough snaps.
Amazingly. And with a 28-year-old man.
Exactly.
I mean, Evander.
You know, however, he's got to be careful now against George. Because any kind of mistake in the fight is over.
Absolutely.
You know.
Boxing fans, it's been an absolute joy talking with you today. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed talking. Bye.